we're bang on time. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November meeting of Lancaster Vision. This evening, we've got Tim Hamilton-Cox, who's the Cabinet Member for Sustainable Economic Prosperity with us, and he's going to give us a bit of a presentation on some aspects of his work. He explained earlier that his portfolio was so wide-ranging that we'd be here for hours if he tried to cover all of it, so he's picked one particular topic to focus on. So, Tim, do you want to make a start?
Thanks very much, James, and hello, everybody. I can't see you, but hopefully you're all there. Okay, so I'm, as James has said, just going to talk about some of the innovative businesses that are in Lancaster District that come across my attention as the portfolio holder. Now, this is not comprehensive. I have to say, my name is on the presentation, but I have borrowed very heavily from the work of Michael Gibson and Dan Knowles, who presented many of these slides to Cabinet last December. But of course, I take responsibility for what I say. So I just need to give that acknowledgement, because I said to Michael this morning, I was using them just to make sure I got his permission. Okay, so when they presented to Cabinet last December, the first question they asked is, what is innovation? And I think most people be aware of that definition. And I think it is what underpins prosperity generally. If I see what's happening with innovative businesses in Lancaster, very much in the particular. So as they pointed out, Lancaster District has a history of innovation, and they picked out these examples. Perhaps the most intriguing one is the first one. Carl Click, who's a Czech emigre, who worked at the Storyworks at White Cross. And he developed, along with Fawcett, you can see this on the Wikipedia entry for rotogravure printing. It was a really important step forward in the printing process. And Lancaster does get an name check. Okay, so if we go on to the present day. So is Lancaster, or are businesses in Lancaster innovative? Well, we've got most of the right ingredients. We've got an incredibly important research-led university in the district. And I'm not sidelining University of Cumbria, but a lot of the businesses that we are talking about here have spun out of the university. So when you get to know, we have got a lot of really successful innovative companies. And now we're starting to get some clustering happening. Now, this is something that's familiar to me from Cambridge. Not that it's just through my father-in-law, who's an academic at Cambridge University, and obviously had a very successful science park development there. And it's about, as I see it, it's about creating the business equivalent of an academic's common room. So it's the opportunity for businesses in a sphere, particular type of business, to come together, to share knowledge, possibly subcontract with each other, create a critical mass so that they're able to perhaps bid for contracts that would be beyond the capabilities of an individual company. And more importantly, or most importantly perhaps, enable some really effective skills training to take place. And one of the companies in the cluster, Milliamp, has led on the formation of an organisation called Tech Lancaster. And there's a lot of spillover between the Electech Innovation Cluster that started this year and Tech Lancaster, same sort of membership. But this is a industry-led skills program. It got £200,000 of funding, and something like 65 people were put through an electronics sort of taster course. It enabled those individuals to understand whether electronics was for them, and for potential employers to see if they had the right skill set. And it looks as though almost 20 people, I think it's 19 currently, have been found permanent jobs within local electronics companies in the district following the launch of that course. So it's proving to be really effective, because you'll appreciate one of the things that holds back the electronics companies, or many other companies at the moment, is lack of skills. So this is the businesses doing it for themselves and getting government funding to do it. And it looks as though they may be successful with the second programme. And fourthly, there is the retention and development of the companies. So we see them, kind of see them grow in Lancaster. Can we keep them here for the long term, so that they're creating maybe not just dozens of jobs, but hundreds of jobs in due course? And we see a bit more, if you like, reindustrialization of the district. And this is the key take home, I think, from this presentation. So the data as of December 2020 is regarding the amount of funding from Innovate UK into Lancaster and Lancashire. Now, Innovate UK is the business equivalent of the research councils. So it's a really important element, particularly post-Brexit, of the funding landscape for innovative businesses. And Lancaster-based businesses have been disproportionately successful at gaining Innovate UK funding. You'll see over the last 3 years here, say up to the end of 2020, Lancaster businesses had got £9.2 million of funding collectively from Innovate UK. That was half the amount that Lancashire got over that three-year period. And if you think about it, yeah, it says there, Lancaster's got about 12% of the county council's population. So that probably says more than anything else I can say about the success of innovative businesses in the district. You will notice that Cambridge is also there. So that's what we can aspire to, that kind of level of success. Now, these are some of the clusters we've got. Those essentially, these have not actually come together in a formal way. They are just, they're potential clusters, but they're businesses in this particular area. And I pick out two here. You may know Morales, Michael Gibson, is involved in founding that company in Whitecross. Electech is a really successful engineering company in or near Cochrane. I'm going to focus on Liner Energy and Nano Sun. First of all, Liner Energy. Now, you may recognize those two, the two chemical element symbols, Li for lithium and Na for sodium. And what is so important about their work is that they are developing battery storage technology which moves away from the use of lithium to sodium. So that their original logo had Li, an arrow to Na, which was probably, and they've accepted this today, actually talking to them, in retrospect, probably a better if they'd retained that, because you may be aware that actually battery technology is becoming much more important, both at a domestic level. If you've got solar PV panels on your roof, and you don't want to feed surplus power into the grid because you get very little money for it, you could store it in the home for when the panels are operating. Then that's one potential use. But they're also looking at electric vehicle battery storage as well. Now, batteries, as I say, typically either have lithium-based technology or cobalt-based technology. Lithium, there are major environmental but also geopolitical problems with lithium, and its sourcing and processing is very much focused in Asia and particularly China. That's why I say the geopolitical element. The other battery technology that's in development uses a lot of cobalt. And you may have seen news articles recently about the extent to which the world is reliant on the Democratic Republic of Congo for sourcing cobalt. And a lot of that cobalt is mined by child labour. So there is an ethical and environmental problem with cobalt. What Liner is doing is eliminating both of those two elements in its battery technology. It's currently just raised another £3.5 million to develop its technology based at the White Cross. I think it's got 22 employees as of today. Nano Sun is a company that's based down Caton Road, just opposite the Holiday Inn. Its speciality is hydrogen refueling rigs. So we understand that a lot of potential transport applications will find it extremely difficult to operate on using batteries or fuel cells. Batteries. Hydrogen, in that case, is the alternative. For example, the City Council is just about, if it's not already done so, taking possession of 2 battery-powered refuse collection vehicles to start replacing the diesel fleet. But a number of councils are looking at hydrogen-powered and vehicles. And in fact, JCB and Electech are producing hydrogen engines in order to go straight, rather than using fuel cells to generate the power, going straight to burning hydrogen in an engine. Anyway, Nano Sun has got this world-leading speciality in the refueling rig. So we saw it a couple of weeks ago at Cochrane, a demonstration. It looks like the size of a shipping container on a trailer, and it was refueling a hydrogen-powered bus that is made by Wrightbus in Northern Ireland. I think it was fueling it so it could get up to COP26, and it refueled this bus in 20 minutes. Nano Sun was Shell's Startup of the Year in 2019, and that in a global competition. To give you an idea of how impressed Shell were. And when we were witnessing the refueling rig, there were a number of people invited, potential investors, but also BP, an engineer from BP, was putting his slide rule over this technology. Okay, so that's a couple of really key companies in the district. Nano Sun, by the way, is moving quickly to 50 employees. It may be there already this week. It's looking to double in the next year or so, and is already moving to larger premises on the Lancaster Business Park. We've got some other specialities in the district. One is marine tech. Companies like OTAC, which recently floated on the stock exchange. Forsberg does global navigation. Baltec on White Lund has developed a speciality in securing offshore wind turbines to the seabed, that link between the turbine and the seabed. We've got some very successful software companies. Just pull out Relative Insight there, which is another spin out from the university. It's taken a floor in the refurbished Fraser House development in White Cross. I think your minutes indicate you're aware of that investment by the county council to refurbish Fraser House. Relative Insight, I'm told, is getting more than half of its turnover from the US. That's how important its particular speciality is in global markets. And I referred to the Electech Innovation Cluster, which is the first one that has actually sort of come together. The business is coming together. It is looking to recruit companies from across Morecambe Bay, and it has now got members in from South Lakes and from Barrow, but preponderantly they're based in Lancaster District. And finally, so this is, if you like, the concluding slide of the presentation that Michael and Dan did for cabinet members and the executive management team at the City Council. This is what they're looking for from us. So coordination between the county, city, LEP and Lancaster University. Certainly the LEP has now got an innovation board, a sort of subset of the enterprise partnership, on which there is local representation, and there is increasingly close working between Lancaster University and the City Council and County. They were looking for a sort of test lab, because I've been talking to you about the technical capabilities of some of the companies in the district. What they need is space, but they also, but most particularly, space where they can test prototypes. Thirdly, they suggested that we needed an innovation brand, a sort of something that sets the district apart, that uses these companies to demonstrate why it deserves this appellation, Net Zero City. And I think we're working on that now. They're looking for people within both councils who understand the needs of the businesses and help them to grow. They want to see us deliver gigabit broadband, hyper-fast broadband into the district. That is within my portfolio as well, and you may want to ask me about progress on that subsequently. They want us to look at delivering quality office space, pointed to Fraser House County Council refurbishing part of its estate on White Cross. They're also now just put a planning application in to increase, to refurbish more space that includes the chapel and the former BBC radio studio there. And they're looking for us to help them retain and develop high-skilled labour. So there is a particular focus now in the City Council on the skills agenda, working with Tech Lancaster and others. I'll leave it there. I hopefully piqued your interest, raised various issues. I don't guarantee to be able to answer all questions, but
well, thanks for that, Tim. That was really interesting. Tim, could you just take your presentation down, because we can then get people on screen and I can see who wants to speak. Right. Okay, well, thanks for that. Right, so who wants to go first? Questions. If you can maybe raise your hand or put the virtual hand up so I know who wants to speak. Who wants to go first? Right, killed in the rush. Well, I'm going to go first then, since nobody else is indicating the what task. Tim, the final slide you put up, which had 7 asks from the business community. Now, as I understand it, that presentation was given to Cabinet in December last year. Yeah. What I'm interested in is, what has the City Council done positively in the last 11 months? Because it was, so the specific question and what I'm really getting at is, has the City Council developed or planning to develop an integrated strategy which delivers on all of those aspects?
It is moving in that direction. There is, but I can't say it's in place. And I think I need to recall the pandemic, because I have to tell you, economic development has been focused on business grants for 18 months plus. In fact, there are still further grant schemes that are being processed. And that has taken priority for the whole of that team and other people who've been seconded into it. For example, the museums manager has been an important part of that team. Yeah. So progress has not been as fast, but I think we have done the right thing in prioritizing the here and now.
Yeah, Tim, I wouldn't quarrel with that, and I think those are very legitimate points. But what drove my question was that you've clearly articulated a really good news story for the city. That we've got these clusters of businesses, right? Some of which are world leading, many of which have got huge potential for driving growth and employment in the city in the years ahead. And I would argue as a citizen that really the City Council's got to respond to that, all being, it's been difficult thus far, because one of the things in my experience is that businesses they like to be cared about, right? They like to know that the local authority actually understands what they need, and the local authority is taking positive steps to deliver on that agenda, because many of these businesses are footloose, and you know better than I do that very often, if you can't deliver on the premises offer when a business expands, they'll go to someone that could. So I'll leave it there. Amy, you've got a question.
Yeah, thanks. I can never resist a dangle carrot. So I was going to ask about the gigabit rollout for broadband.
Okay, this has been in development since October 2019, and the business case has been being refined over 18 months, and then the ICT manager left, and we have had a hiatus because all the council's expertise was rooted in him. And so he produced a business case, but we have had to wait until his replacement comes on board, and that happened last week. So I've not actually met Tony yet, but Tony is ICT manager at Blackpool Borough Council. He has overseen the rollout of full fibre network or is seeing the rollout in Blackpool. And I know, although I've not spoken to him directly yet, that he is ready to pick this up. We have a number of local companies that have helped to develop the business case. And that's essentially, where do we put the fibres? So we're not duplicating what's already there, but creating a network more quickly than the private sector is doing unassisted. And it's likely that this is what I was told on Friday, it's likely the first connection, the first major gigabit connection will be between UCLan and the university campus, and we're looking to go from the campus into the city centre. I can't be any more specific than that because I've not seen the business case myself. There was a target of getting approval. There's about £1.7 million in the budget for the city council's contribution. So that's already approved by full council. How to spend that was going to be the subject of a cabinet report in September, but it's been held back, and it looks like it's going to be early new year now because of this, the gap between one person leaving and recruiting the replacement.
Tim, can I ask a follow-up on that? The 1.7 million, is that the totality of the cost of the project, or are you trying to lever in money from elsewhere, and if so, from where?
Right, it was the idea was to be part of a joint venture. Now, I don't know if I don't want to mention names,
Well, yeah.
but it's more to indicate that based on the scope of what the network that was being scoped, that was a reasonable amount that leveraged in a similar amount.
Right. Okay. Okay, so we've got Marion, and we'll take Marion first, and then we'll take Howard. Marion, do you want to ask your question? You're on mute, Marion. You'll have to unmute.
There you go. Thank you very much, Tim. It's a great pleasure to be at a presentation where you genuinely don't know anything about what's being talked about, and it's all brand new information. So thank you very much for that. And my question really
about me, actually. I feel that.
My question really emerges from that. The Eden project is gathering tremendous momentum in the district because it's so well publicised. The fact that we have these companies, I realise that it's the concepts behind them are more difficult to convey, but I think that City Council does need a means of communication, a programme for communicating what it's doing, because that will generate the kind of interest and motivation that could lead to further funding, further cooperations. You never know until you start who you're going to meet on a journey. But while these businesses are acting in a rather closed circle, it's more difficult for them to be known about.
A leading local businessman said to me a couple of months ago, the sum total of the growth that I'm seeing is at least as important and probably more important to the prosperity of the district than the Eden project.
Yes.
Being over the next couple of years.
Yes.
Yes. But the Eden project, as you suggest, is easier to understand. There are images that people can look at, and there's visualizations. And of course, they're complementary because that's very much focused in Morecambe. And the centre of gravity of these businesses is Lancaster.
I think, Tim,
in terms of the district's prosperity as a whole, let's have both.
But I think you rather make Marion's point, because this is really important, as you've articulated. You've said that the economic value of this could exceed the Eden project, but yet it's nowhere near as widely appreciated or understood. And I think, and we're not really looking for an answer tonight, but I think there's a bit of a steer there from Marion saying, really, perhaps we need to do more to get this in front of people, to get people to understand this. It's not all about the Eden project, albeit Eden's very important. Howard, you've got a point or a question.
Yeah, that was really interesting. The figures are very spectacular. I was wondering, though, just to follow up James's point about the embeddedness of these companies in the local community, they might easily outgrow the area, and they might migrate to Cambridge. And therefore, I was thinking more in terms of, you know, you end up thinking vis-a-vis the council's interest in community wealth building. If there are forms of social ownership, then that's more likely to guarantee embeddedness in the locality, don't you think?
That would be the case. I guess as these companies grow and expand their range of funders, there is a greater danger that they leave. But on the other hand, well, this, you know, I've met Nano Sun and Liner Energy both in the last couple of weeks, and I impress on them how important I think they are to the district, and you know, talk to us about what you need in order to stay in the district, because we really want to have that conversation. We want to do whatever we can to retain you so that you do develop. I mean, Nano Sun said, well, one thing the city council would do would be to support a hydrogen refueling station next to junction 34. So, you know, if it comes to a planning application, are you going to be positive? You know, that they've got plans for a piece of land in the district where they think they can effectively house their crown jewels, as they put them, develop their technology. Would the council, city council, be happy with the planning? It's land that's potentially owned by the county. You know, would county prioritise them for the use of this land? It's those kind of questions we want to say, well, yeah, as far as we can, because it's not just city councillors who've been meeting with Nano Sun, county councillors equally impressed, equally keen to see them retained in the district and have these discussions.
I mean, I think, Tim, that's really, I think that's really reassuring what you're saying, because the key to actually retaining businesses, in my view, is actually that people actually know what's happening, what's going on, and what's in the head of the business. When I asked my question earlier, what I was really getting at was that if you actually know where the threshold points are for the development of individual businesses in advance, then it gives you and your colleagues at the council some time to get your ducks in a row to actually deliver on that. Because, you know, what you don't want is them coming and saying, we need some new premises and we need it next week. I'm just using that to make the point. Anyway, anyone else want to ask a question of Tim? I think we've got David, and then we'll take, John. Yeah, David, and then Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That was really interesting. And I've got to say, as was said before, as Marion said, a lot of those companies I was not aware of. I was certainly not aware of the hydrogen technology. I'm aware of the hydrogen technology. It's one of the subjects I've been very keen on for many, many years as a way forward. So my question really is, how can we help you promote the concepts and the ideas and what you're actually doing? Because I wasn't aware of it, and you know, we have an active board where we can promote, and I think you've seen some of that in recent months. Can we help? Well,
when you see references to these companies, you can always, I don't know, whether you have a social media presence. Obviously, this is going on to your website, isn't it? This is why I chose this particular subject, because I think it is something that requires cascading, and you're part of that process, aren't you?
Yeah, I think though what David's getting at is that we'd be very happy at any time to help the city council promote anything, right, within reason, because very often people will look at our websites and our social media footprint that might not necessarily look at the council's. Yeah. So, you know, if there's things, you know, from time to time that you'd like us to promote, let us know and we'll gladly put that out there.
Okay.
Right. Okay. David, your hand's still up.
No, it's sorry, I'm taking it down now.
Right. And we'll take Richard.
Yes, thanks very much, Tim. That was extremely interesting. in fact, very encouraging that high-tech business is being developed to this extent in Lancaster. It raises two questions in my mind. One is the danger of losing that business as it expands, as has happened in the past, and our ability to cope with it. I'm wondering whether the canal quarter has been considered for the construction of perhaps a high-tech building with megabyte connection and so forth to allow this to develop. Apart from the industrial section of it, the area also, which was an industrial area, opens up the possibility of offices for high-tech businesses near the city centre, which is excellent for employment and for the centre itself. The other thing, I know Tim said it was one of many subjects, but the thing that has interested Lancaster Vision over the years really has been the lack of publicity for Lancaster itself as a visitor centre. I mean, we have here the history. You only need to look at the castle or above the ground floor of the shops in the centre, that we've got the potential here to attract customers. We're getting only small numbers through the castle compared with places like York, which perhaps has less than us, but is very well known, a big visitor centre. All we need really is the publicity. The advantage of tourism is people come here and leave their money behind. What easier way could we make of prosperity? Thanks very much, Timmy.
Okay, yeah, that place branding is perhaps moving away from this particular presentation. I think it is a subject in itself.
Yeah.
In terms of creating space on Canal Quarter, I think master planning is happening now. I can't remember the name of the successful consortium, but it is happening now. There is also, and I can't reveal any details because there aren't final decisions made, but there is a conscious effort to identify office space that companies can grow into, because I learned today that every space that's big enough for 4 or more people in the Health Innovation Campus is already taken. So that goes to, I can't remember how many thousand square meters they've got of space to let, but it's being taken up very quickly. At least the larger modules have been taken up. So that's indicative of the demand. Before the pandemic, we had, as a council, city council, identified a building on the council's estate for hot desking, but it was shelved. The idea was shelved. As the pandemic came on, we didn't know at that point what the demand for office space would be on the other side because of this resort to home working. And it does look as though there is a sort of, many companies are operating a hybrid form of working, not least the Lancaster University. That I have raised the issue whether we should take it off the shelf, dust it down. And that did come with a digital exchange that would, so you're one of the first recipients of gigabyte broadband in the district, because we're conscious that this is almost an essential utility for these kind of businesses.
Okay, thanks, Doctor. Now we've got one other question, two other questions. Hugh, I'll take you in a moment, but we had one hand up previously. I'm sorry, you've only got iPhone on your screen, so whoever's got iPhone on the screen, if you want to ask your question.
Is it me?
Yeah, you, that's right, yeah.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Smith.
Right.
I just wanted to ask a quick question about the hydrogen refueling stations. I attended a talk pre-COVID about this. It was given by Lancaster University, and at that time Junction 34 as a refueling station was mentioned, but also Heysham Power Station was considered as an alternative on the basis that if anything happened with a hydrogen explosion, the power station's so safe it shouldn't be a worry to site it nearby. And I just wondered, you mentioned Junction 34. Does that mean Heysham Power Station is now longer being considered, or the port there, whichever it was? And also, is it still the case that our nearest hydrogen refueling station is Sheffield?
I think it's Rotherham. Yes. it's yes. That appears to be the case. They are few and far between, obviously. Yeah. It's there need to be refueling stations close together in order to get that critical mass of potential users, and that is realized. In terms of the hydrogen project involving Heysham Power Station, EDF, I think that was a time limited project which looked at using the output from the nuclear power station to create hydrogen. It was in conjunction with the Lancaster University and City Council, but it didn't get follow-on funding. So this is entirely separate project.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hugh, you've got a question?
Well, it's again regarding space. In the early days of Lancaster Vision, we had Michael Gibson lobbying us very strongly in terms of Lancaster needs space for expansion in order to let these new businesses grow, and once they've grown, to keep them here. I was just wondering, if we're talking about joined up thinking, it seems that the local council is on a spending spree at the moment, having bought up frontier land, and I understand now bought up one of the largest car parks. Is it on their wish list to actually buy appropriate new build or places to expand for such uses as Tim has been talking about?
Oh, we're just starting discussions on a revamped investment strategy, and there are some slides in my inbox that came through about an hour ago. I haven't looked at them yet, preparatory to a discussion tomorrow. So I'm a bit wary, actually. Can you hear me wriggling?
Yeah. Well, Tim, you don't have to wriggle, because I'm going to suggest something. I mean, I think this has been a really interesting subject. I think we've all enjoyed it, and it's where to wrap it. And I wonder whether you might be prepared to come back and talk to us maybe in 6 months' time, and just talk to us about, what's happened in the intervening period, because this is an issue which I think is quite critical to the future of Lancaster, and we'd just like to keep on top of this. So would you be prepared to come back and talk to us?
Absolutely.
Right. Well, I think that's probably the way to deal with this, because we don't want you wriggling in.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. I wonder what they're. Yeah, because I understand what Hugh's saying, but I don't. And I don't want to get into treasury management rules being laid down by the Chartered Institute for Public Finance and Accountancy and by government, okay, which do dictate what the council can invest in. Okay, so the revamped investment strategy is taking account of the different potential to invest in space.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to prolong this, no. Tim. I mean, I was interested in what you said a few moments ago about the take-up in the university's innovation campus. Yeah. I mean, I just wonder what work, if any, that the council is doing with the private sector to try and get them more aware of the potential, because it's difficult to get private property developers to invest on a speculative basis unless they can be convinced there's a market there. But they do tend to be a bit like sheep, that once somebody makes a bit of money off of this, they tend to pile in. And obviously the university's investment has been hugely successful. So again, I maybe just reflect on that and maybe talk to us again about it when you come back in say 6 months' time or so.
Okay, just in the meantime, there's one thing on my notes here that I just wanted to flag up, and that Innovate UK is so impressed by what is happening in Lancaster that it is, off its own bat, holding a one-day conference focused on Lancaster District businesses and their success in developing innovation.
That's
the
brilliant.
25th of January. That I think is the best form of plaudit, the best kind of plaudit that we could have.
Yeah.
That they are going to those lengths to show everybody else just how good.
Is that a real conference, or is it a virtual conference, or?
I don't know the details.
Okay, but the point I would make there, Tim, is, I mean, I think that's absolutely brilliant, but who knows about that?
Well, even Michael Gibson didn't know about it this morning.
Yeah, because I really think, right, that's something the council should be putting out there, right? And we'd certainly, if you do some publicity material on that, we'd be very happy to try and carry that as well, because, you know, going back to some of the earlier points are made, people are often very critical of local authorities. And one of the reasons for that is local authorities aren't good at actually telling people consistently about what they do, you know. And I know you say it one, but you need to keep hammering that message out, and out, you know.
Okay, it is Innovate UK's baby, and I don't think they've issued any.
Yeah, but it's still in Lancaster, right? I mean, I say I'm not being critical here. I'm actually trying to be supportive, because I think that's recognition of the success of the council's strategy. All I would say is tell people about it, you know.
It's the kind of thing we would like to shout about, certainly, and we can get to a lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
when I know about it formally, this was just mentioned in a conference.
As I say, I'm not trying to catch out. I'm not.
No.
I'm generally trying to be supportive and say, what can we do to help? So, Tim, that's been great. It's been really interesting. Thank you very much for taking the time, and we will contact you in a few months' time and try and get you back to give an update, or indeed, if you want to pick another subject from your vast portfolio, then please do so. Okay, so thank you. You're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, Tim.
I'm really interested in the rest of the agenda, if that's okay.
Okay, well, let's.
Excellent. First of all, thank you, Tim. Very
okay.
Enjoyable.
So let's just do the procedural stuff then. So, apologies for absence. We've had we'd one apology, David, from Jill, didn't we?
Jill, yeah. Amy's on here, isn't she? Yeah. So she did apologise, but she's here now.
We've only had one formal sort of apology. Minutes of the last meeting, they've been circulated. Is everyone happy with those as a true record? If nobody starts jumping up and down, I'm going to assume you're all happy. Yeah, so we'll consider those approved. And then matters arising. I think any of the matters arising will be dealt with under the other agenda items. So moving on, South Lancaster. That has been a huge issue. I think it's fair to say, I don't want to embarrass Tim, but I think the political ramifications of that still roll on to an extent. It seems to focus on a number of political communications that are issued back by the various parties. I suppose the one thing that I would want to draw people's attention to is a recent report that was presented to the County Council about the Link Road and the junction improvements to junction 33, because the County Council recently considered a report which actually identified a route for the roadworks and gave a bit more information about what was happening. But what was really interesting was that originally the County Council had hoped that this would be considered as an infrastructure project of national significance. If that had been the case, the project would not have required planning consent. It would have been deemed centrally. The report to the County Council indicated that that was not the case, and in fact, the proposal would require planning consent. So in the coming months, we're likely to see a fairly substantial planning application for these works. And I think it's inevitable that both Lancaster Vision and Lancaster Civic Society will be making comments on those. I don't know if there's anything anybody wants to ask or raise in addition to that about South Lancaster. No, nobody's indicating. Eden North, again, lots of publicity about that. I'm happy to say that the Civic Society, they submitted comments to the City Council on the Eden North planning application. David, as usual, is quick off the mark, and he's now got those on the web within about 4 or 5 hours. So you can have a look at our website and you'll see what we've said. But basically, we're saying we think it's a fantastic project, we think it's a brilliant design, and we're encouraging the local authority to approve that planning application. So again, I'll stop there to see if there's any comments or reflections. And just for Tim's benefit, I'm deliberately going through this fairly quickly because we've only got a limited amount of time. Normally, if we didn't have a speaker, we'd have a bit more debate and reflection on these things. So are there any comments or views about Eden North?
The only comment I've got is what we put out, we've now actually put it out as a press release as well. So it will be covering every area. It's out on social media, it's on the webpage with the links, and the press release has gone out. So it's already attracting attention, which I'm delighted to say, because it's brilliant.
Okay, Canal Quarter, as Tim indicated, the consultants have now been appointed to do the master planning exercise for this. One of the things that myself and Sue have been involved in is we became part of the council's housing advisory group, and earlier in the year that housing advisory group set up 2 subgroups, one to look at sort of green issues around housing. That wasn't the title, but that group was chaired by Tim, and that did some work. And there was another group that was looking at unmet housing needs, and I chaired that group. At the last meeting, the housing advisory group, the unmet housing needs subgroup presented a report actually recommending that we actually try and do more on the subject of community build housing. One of the reasons why we focused on that particular type of housing was it's exempt from right to buy. As you know, Lancaster Vision has been pushing the council on social housing, but the council understandably has a reticence about that, gets still exposed to right to buy. So the council could build another 100 houses and very rapidly find that the people that go into those houses actually buy them and they disappear from the market. But we recommended that the local authority actually identify a site for community-led housing, and we recommended that be on the Canal Quarter. I've been having some discussions with a number of people within the council about that, and we're going to continue to push that because I actually personally believe that it would be a good way of getting something away on the Canal Quarter, but B, and perhaps more importantly, a couple of years ago, the council announced that their commitment to a socially just use of land and property. Now, I think it'd be an excellent way of the council demonstrating that they actually are doing something that is socially just with the land and property that they own, but that's a work in progress. Digital Lancaster, again, I've not heard anything about that, and I'm just looking at colleagues tonight, and including Tim, to see whether he could give us any information on that, because it all seems to have gone very quiet over the last few months. Nobody else is saying, Tim, do you have any information you could share with us about that?
Well, in terms of digital strategy, I tend to think of the key component of that is the full fibre network, and as I say, that's a piece of work
right.
that has just had a bit of a pause because of this gap between ICT managers, but I'm really expecting it
so
to
that may re-emerge in the not too distant future. No, that's good. And then the final substantive item is transport update. Now I'm going to ask David to speak on this because the main area of focus over the last month or so has been on HS2 and the threat that HS2 potentially poses, and I'm stressing the word potentially poses, to Lancaster's direct services to Scotland and London. David, do you want to bring us up to date on what's been happening and what's going to happen next?
Yeah, well, all I can do is just tell you that I attended the cabinet meeting with HS2, where they gave their presentations. Basically, we've got one direct train per hour that comes from Lancaster direct into London via Crewe, where it will join up or part, starting off as a 200-metre train, but will end up as a 400-metre train at London. It meets up with the train from Liverpool Street, Line Street, Liverpool. That line is already running at the moment, except you have to get off the train at Crewe and get onto the one from Liverpool, which is a pain. But with the new HS2, it'll be straight away through. That's a great service. That's superb. The other one that we have at the moment is the direct line from Scotland that comes through Lancaster and then goes down through the Midlands and goes into London. But there's also one that diverts down to, which a lot of people don't realise. We've actually got a train which leaves Glasgow or Edinburgh and goes all the way down to Penzance, right at the tip of the country. The proposals are that there will be one train an hour which will leave either Glasgow or Edinburgh, alternate between them, will stop at Lancaster, but will then go down to the new terminal at Birmingham Curzon Street, and it will terminate there. So if you want to get to London, you'll have to get off and get on a train to London from Birmingham, Birmingham becoming a kind of central hub. It means, in effect, that we've lost some of the suppliers that we currently have. And these are the recommendations of HS2 that are going, I believe, before Parliament in early next year. What we have to stress is that these are recommendations. When it comes to the operators, if they decide not to implement it, then they don't do it. And so the one question that we particularly asked was, how do we get HS2's recommendations to become the operator of AMTI's recommendations as well, so they actually happen, rather than just leave it at that. And the only way that we can do that is that we lobby Department of Trade and Avanti, which is what we are now starting to do. The other fly in the ointment, as far as I'm concerned, is that the reason that we're getting reduced service is that our station cannot take 400-metre trains, and the HS2 trains are 400 metres. Preston can't either, and neither can Carlisle. But both of those stations are being upgraded. And I see no reason, particularly with Eden project as well, why perhaps Lancaster should not be considered for a 400-metre station. It cannot be beyond the wit of man to extend our station, I'm sure, for something as major. And also as well for the investment into the area, because clearly if we're not having these connections, the investment will dribble away. They'll trickle through our fingers, and it's going to have a hell of an impact on the area. So I think that's pretty well updated. I think Amy might be able to, or Richard might be able to add something to that as well.
Amy or Richard, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I'd only add that the main concern for Lancaster is to have a HS2 fast train to London. And if we have one an hour, that I would regard as a success, because whether it changes at Crewe or not, well, splits at Crewe or not, it should save a good hour on the London journey, which is very important for business and industry. Going north to Glasgow and Edinburgh, as far as I'm aware, the TPE service, which again provides another hourly service to Glasgow and Edinburgh, plus the one that David has mentioned, which continues, should be sufficient, because passengers north of Lancaster, I know from travelling, I'm sure a lot of us have, the train is a lot emptier than it is going south. So I think, you know, I'd be very, very pleased. Our key thing is to make sure we have an HS2 fast service from Lancaster to London, and I wouldn't do anything to jeopardise that.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Amy, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, we need to be really ambitious on this in terms of our transport strategy. You know, Richard's commented about, you know, loss of the direct service via the West Midlands and loss of the Advantage services to Edinburgh and Glasgow. Frankly, I think as an organisation, as a city, we need to be bold, and I really do not see why we should accept any level of service in the future that's lower than we've got now. And actually, we should be using all the lobbying influence at our disposal to lobby for improvement, not accept a form of deterioration. And I think kind of rolled into our transport strategy should be, you know, the great work that's been done already, making the case for the station at Ubeck, electrification of the railway line to Morecambe, you know, on a fit for purpose industry standard basis, not the proposed battery train basis. And I think we need to be making the case for significant investment and a minimum of a no deterioration strategy. I really do. I don't see why our city should accept anything worse than we have at the moment.
See, Amy, I'm very much in your camp on this, because I mean, I think it's, and it was interesting, the sort of stuff that Tim was talking about earlier about how well the city is doing in a number of regards, you know, the innovation sector, Eden, etc., etc., etc. And I think we should demonstrate a level of ambition, yeah? Because I think if we just meekly accept second best, we're going to get third best, right? And I actually think that we can align this with the government's levelling up strategy. You know, because every time a government minister opens their mouth, they utter the words levelling up. Now, actually, if they're serious about levelling up, then they need to be doing stuff like this. So I think, I don't want to prolong it too much tonight, but I think David's indicated that, you know, we are developing the next stages. And I think it's also fair to say that the council are lobbying extensively on this, and we've taken great pains to ensure that we don't do anything which is acts against what the council is doing. So we're trying to get copies of the letters the council has sent, just to make sure that we're aligned with the main messages they're putting forward. But I think this is going to be a subject we're going to talk a lot more about and have much more of a profile on in the months ahead. Okay, is there anything anybody else wants to say about transport? No, well, I'm going to move to any other business. Are there any other items of business that anybody wants to raise? I can see no hands going up. So,
that was easy.
Yeah, so I thank you all for coming along tonight, and thank you again, Tim, for taking the time to talk to us. It was very interesting.
My pleasure.
We'll see you again sometime next year. Okay, good night, everyone.